Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can get more information and find out about previous shows at my website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gary Schwartz, a retired founder and director at Gary Awake, for being my guest today. And Gary, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching it, that's Gary Schwartz. Dr. Gary Schwartz is retired from a 23-year career as a psychologist and life skill coach. And so was it, Gary? You started when you were 13 or 14. Was that it? The 20, how you got the 23
Kind
years?
of.
The youngest psychologist in the area. And he had provided private sessions, seminars on guided imagery, self-hypnosis, subliminal learning, and healing. Gary then continues navigating his journey with Parkinson's disease with creative and innovative ways in living life to the fullest. So, Gary, the question I ask first of all is, as a kid, you grew up where?
Miami, Florida.
Okay, and as a kid growing up in Miami, Florida, did you always know you wanted to be a psychologist?
No, I
No.
didn't. I didn't entertain it until I got out of 4 years of the service.
Yeah.
I was
So,
Air
as a
Force.
kid, what did you want to do?
Be a scientist.
A science, well, psychology is not too far away from there. So after you graduated, then was it high school or college? You went into the service?
Yeah.
What was that? After high school or college?
I did the service. It was when the Vietnam era was going on, and they were drafting people. It was before college, and I put 4 years in the Air Force.
Okay. So you then, I won't say graduated at Air Force, but you got out of the service, and then you went to school at that point in time as a to study psychology.
Yeah, I went to the University of Florida, and later I went to West Georgia College.
Okay. And what got you into psychology at that time?
Um, I met two professors that were psychology teachers, and I joined their social uh, friends, and I I liked who they were, and I wanted to do the same thing.
Now, I got to know you also. I was very impressed. For a while, you were doing a bunch of seminars in the Asheville area, in
Yeah,
addition to your, I guess, your private practice. And I think I met you with something called, was it tapping or was it EF? What is it?
EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique.
Okay. And you were doing, which is kind of cool, you were doing a whole bunch of those kinds of seminars as well at that time, were you?
Yes, that, and I taught self hypnosis, and I taught healing the child within. We did workshops.
Now, like I said, I attended a couple of your workshops I know. Did you enjoy like doing the workshops or individual one-on-one sessions more?
Both.
Did. And so the idea of the workshops were kind of cool that since I mentioned it, so EFT, what was the idea behind EFT?
You can use acupressure to rebalance the emotional body, and you can dissolve traumas, PTSD, and it eliminates everyday pains and aches. It balances the whole system using acupressure.
Now, is that something do you still use it or do it
No, I'm retired from any professional life.
from the professional life, but for yourself, do you use it?
Not as often as I should.
Okay, because I was so impressed with you, the idea of being that people could do it on themselves, right? And it would make them
Yes.
feel better. And it wasn't, I was so impressed. It wasn't like a long, convoluted process. You could do it. What was it called tapping? Was that what that's called?
It's also called tapping, and
Okay,
takes 5 to 10 minutes to do it.
okay. And I always thought that was pretty cool. So you were doing that. You had your professional practice, and at some point in time, Parkinson's entered into the picture, I guess, right?
About 12 years ago.
Okay. And what happened? So was it all of a sudden, or did it was an evolutionary thing?
It slowly evolves. It's still evolving. Initially, I started having a tremor in my right hand, and I thought it was a benign tremor, but it turned out not to be. And my right foot would scuff, would kind of drag a little bit, just a slight amount, but it alerted me something was going on.
And so at that point in time, you got diagnosed.
Right.
And so,
Probably.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Most people have the Parkinson's way before they're diagnosed.
Well, that was probably in your case, right? You
Yeah.
had it. And how long did you have it, you think, before you got diagnosed?
Probably a couple of years.
Okay. And so talk about then the idea then you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, and to your credit, and I remember I would used to see you, I was also impressed at a physical therapy place. Remember, it was the
Right.
when and you were working out like crazy, and we'll talk about the fact that you still work out like crazy, but you certainly didn't seem to take it sitting down or standing. What got you into the idea of doing the physical activity?
Um, I work out with weights, with free weights, and I have a two-story house, and I do stairs. I go up and down the 15 steps, maybe 10 times or so.
Okay, and you're still doing that to this day?
Yeah, you need to exercise with Parkinson's, or it slows down the progression, but it still progresses. There's a lot of research happening trying to fix this disease, but there's nothing that has reached a marketable place to be available.
Because what's pretty cool with you is that, like I said, I've known you for, 15, 20 years, and I think I knew you when I first heard you had Parkinson's, but you seem amazingly stable, I guess, if that's the word to use on it, that I guess through the exercise and some of the other stuff you're doing, it's
And
giving you,
I take a dopamine pill 4 times a day,
and
and
does that help it?
it helps. I'm pitiful without it.
Okay, so you know when you better take it. So you t took it, but then what I'm really impressed with the exercise was again, I forget the name of the place. You'll remember, but it's a physical therapy place on Hendersonville Road.
Yes,
You know what I'm talking about. And boy, I'd see you, and they were working you pretty hard in those sessions. You were doing
right.
a lot of different stuff, and you were doing that what, a couple times a week.
Uh, Once or twice a week. I did it for about a year and a half,
Yeah,
and then something happened, COVID or something
right.
interrupted it, and I didn't go back to it.
Okay. So, but what's kind of cool, you then started doing this a lot at your own home.
Yeah,
And so, what do? You mentioned you do the steps. Do you do weights at home as well?
I do weights, and I used to walk a lot, but I can't walk worth a darn anymore.
Um, that's interesting. Can you, at this point in time, can you drive?
I've given up driving.
Okay.
I feel like I
So,
could drive, but my family is better.
okay.
It's
So you got the
better.
word. You got the word you shouldn't be driving. But talk about the other thing, and Gary, which so impressed me about you, is that then also, I think you were the first guy I ever knew who played something called hacky sack, and
Right.
and that was before you were playing that before you had Parkinson's.
Yes.
Okay, so for the benefit of most of the folks who don't know what hacky sack is, what exactly is it?
Hacky sack is a game played with two or more people in a circle, using a bean bag and using just your feet and your knees, uh, passing the bag around the circle of friends. And the goal is for everyone to kick it before it hits the ground. And if you make it through one round of everyone kicking it, you keep it going and go for two or three or four. And when you get up in those upper numbers, uh, people people's attention gets riveted on the following the beanbag, and we enter into what's called the zone, cooperative consciousness. Like there's a sense of us merging with each other, and it's great fun and it's exercise.
What's the most number of rounds? You mentioned five. It's getting high when it's five. What's the highest number you've ever gone up to?
23.
Really?
Right.
Wow. What I love about it too is that. And I wish all sports were like this. So it's not really it's not competitive at all. It's cooperative,
It-
I guess, as
It's
opposed
totally
to
cooperative. The idea is for everyone to touch the bag before it hits the ground. And we celebrate it when that is accomplished. It also is a reminder that spiritually we're all connected.
how do you celebrate it?
Uh, we raise our hands and push against the neighbor's hands in a circle, or sometimes we hoot and holler.
Now, since I've only seen the tape of it, and we'll talk about tape in a second, but in playing the game, can one person then hit it repeatedly, or is the idea it has to go around the circle?
We call that hackster baiting.
And what exactly is that?
That's when you play with yourself.
Oh, no, I mean, but when, like, if you have five guys, can one guy monopolize it, or they're not supposed to?
That it's unsaid, but we're not supposed to.
Because the
The idea
idea,
is,
I'm sorry, what?
excuse me, I need to get a sip.
Yeah, take time. So the idea being that so the circle is typically how many people?
Two, as many as minimum of two, and as many of as 8 or 9.
So
And
sometimes you have all different ranges in the number of people you play with. Is that correct?
right, right. Some
So
people are really good, and other people are not. But we don't require being good. It's not one of the requirements. The requirement is, are you having fun?
how would you rate yourself?
I'm mediocre.
Were you? Like
Yeah,
years,
occasionally everyone has an experience where they do something spectacular, probably every second or third game, and everyone gets a charge out of that.
now when you play and you were telling me off the air, you typically meet what, once a week?
On Saturday mornings,
At what time?
we're on a winter schedule. We meet at 11. In the summertime, we meet at 9 or 9:30.
Okay. And so where do you meet?
My yard.
Oh, is it your yard?
We used to, before COVID, we used to meet at the park,
Right.
the dog park.
So now these games or sessions, are they open to anybody or it has to be by invitation only?
It's by invitation.
Okay. So if you know Gary Schwartz, or we'll talk about getting in touch with you and you want to check this out, they have to contact you or check it out first if they want to play. You play, talk about when you play. You play, so you said Saturday mornings, rain or shine?
We don't play in the rain. Um, uh, we don't. This is going to sound crazy. I have a spiritual relationship with the weather Davids that live over my house. And I
Okay.
often ask them to open up the clouds for us to kick, and they comply. So
So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I realize that's kind of outlandish to believe that that's happening, but that is my experience.
Well, it's positive experience. So out of the year, for example, how many dates get rained out or canceled?
For the whole year, maybe 15 or 20.
Well, it's pretty good odds, so that you're
Yeah,
going to play most every week. It must be, I guess, when it's bad weather, it must be kind of a downer that all of a sudden you're looking forward to this and you can't play.
right. Sometimes we'll move it to Sunday because we want to kick if there's better weather on Sunday.
Would you have played like today? It's been freezing in Asheville. Do you even play in the very cold?
Yeah, often.
Okay. Now talk about then who is an ideal person for hacky sack? You mentioned you have a group. Are there any women in the group at all?
Occasionally, but it's mostly guys.
Okay. And what kind of shape do you have to be in to play it?
You have to have good balance.
Okay. Well,
Um,
that's pretty cool with
because,
you playing it then. Your balance, I guess, is not what it was at one time.
well, usually one or two guys walks with me down to the lower level of my yard because I can't walk. But once I'm standing in the circle, I can lift my feet up just fine. And I have a tendency to fall, but we arrange it so the two burly guys are on either side of me and they grab me before I hit the ground.
And so they can pick you up. So
Yeah.
is it the idea? So you can kick, and if it goes to you, or do you go out to retrieve it, or how does that work?
Yeah, I don't go out to retrieve it so much anymore. I can't spin,
Right.
but I lately I've had a hard time keeping my endurance up and falling too often, and I now kick part of the game in a chair.
Okay, cool. But you can still do it though.
Yeah,
Um, and so in terms of before you you got diagnosed with Parkinson's, were you do you practice this like on your own, or is it something you can get good at by doing it?
and in the beginning, I would just kick with myself and try and keep it in the air alone, and over time, I got better and better. We still we've been in it for a while, and we still improve occasionally. There's lots of miraculous saves.
Well, you mentioned you can't do it now, but what some of the guys dive to make the saves, is that it?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you can only use your feet though, right?
Uh, no hands. You can use your shoulders, your head, your knees, your feet.
So it sounds like it's a pretty good workout though, is it?
It is
Yeah. And you play just for an hour is all you play?
hour and a half.
Oh, an hour and a half.
We take two brief water breaks in between. It's a social game for us. We check in with each other and how's your week going? How's this project going? And it's a lot of humor and an enormous amount of laughter.
Now, when I see other people playing, I guess playing the same game, you oftentimes see younger kids playing it, right? Or they play
Right,
it a lot.
right. Most people are competitive even in the game, and they they criticize each other, and we don't do that. We support each other.
I was going to ask you that is there a competitive version of hacky sack?
A lot of people play that way, yes, and there are tournaments. I've
It,
never indulged, but there are.
no, but I'm
There's an
trying.
organization.
What's the idea behind the tournament, though? How do you win this?
It's just a matter of showing off your skills.
Yeah. So you mean so the idea being it almost then I guess becomes like tennis, I guess a little bit that
I think some people play it with a net.
oh,
A
do they
group,
too?
yeah,
But the thing I liked about what you said earlier, which is so cool, is that I wish all sports were like that rather than be competitive, to be collaborative and to have fun and not to always, like tennis. I didn't like tennis because you have to ram it down the person's throat. And,
right.
that was the goal. Here, the goal is to, which is kind of cool, to not ram it down to have as many, like, what do you call it, volleys or rallies?
A hack.
A hack. Okay. And so, are there any techniques to that? Meaning, are there some things like is it like volleyball? Is your goal to keep it up in the air, or do you have a specific skill you develop on this?
Some people will kick it two or three times before they pass it on, and some of the more skillful among us will spin around and do acrobatic stuff. And when they first joined our group, they did a lot of showing off. But over time, they realized that the unspoken idea is to let everyone win. And so we keep track of who hasn't kicked it yet. And I usually call their name out.
Oh,
Say,
really?
yeah, over here, or Jim, or go for John, or
Well, I guess the cool thing about this, and you being an example, is you can play this almost as long as you can play this up to any age almost. We'd say that's true.
yeah, yes. Now
So,
I'm prone to falling. We play on what used to be a grassy area. The grass is now gone. It's just clay, but it's a soft landing. Um,
so like, I mean, you being an example, you've been doing this now. Has it been with same group, or you've had other people enter into the group?
we've had people enter and leave and die, and
Can you imagine? They don't have to get permission. They can just die on their own. They can just do it anytime.
uh, the last person to die was about 6 months ago.
Oh, sorry to hear.
He had a lung disease, and he had a 3 year warning that it was going to take him out. And the last 6 months or so he played, he had oxygen tank on his back.
Really? Wow. So, but he didn't. So, as far as you know, he didn't die, or did he die playing hacky sack?
No, but the the day before he died, he came to the game. His wife drove him, and we said our goodbyes.
Oh, sweet. But actually, when you think about it, that'd be a pretty cool way to die, doing something you
Yeah,
like. So
yeah.
the 20 years. So do you have any guys who've been in all 20 years?
Yes, just one other and myself.
Okay. And you
The
guys,
other,
yeah,
the other
you
people
guys,
who joined along the way.
you started it 20 years ago? Did the two of you start it?
Right.
Yeah. So what got you, like you didn't have Parkinson's at the time. What got you started on the game, or how did you start picking it up?
I was at a retreat, and the person who's I was helping run the retreat introduced us to the game, and I loved it. I loved the game, and I just kept doing it. I solicited other people to come join us, and uh, there's a video on YouTube that has some of the early members kicking the bag around.
Well, by the way, I was going to mention it, so thanks for beating me to the punch. Gary, why don't you just describe the video and then we're going to tell people how they can see it if they're interested. But
The,
talk about the video.
the video is in 3 parts on YouTube. It's Hacky Sack 101 and part one, part two, and part three, and interviews the people and asks them what they like about the game, why they play. And it has video examples of the game done well, where the bag seems to just float around. And it it's
Well, anyway, what I'll do, Gary, is I want people to see the video, but rather than subject them to it right now, at the end of the show, I'm going to put it in the notes to the show. So if you want to see the video, and I encourage people to see it, you'll be able to just click on the link and take you right to see the video. And so why was it in three parts?
at the time I didn't know how to upload that much video.
Okay.
I posted it probably 5 years ago.
Okay, sound a little bit like me, and that's why I think we're going to tell people to see the video rather than me trying to show it in midair here. So if you want to see what hacky sack is all about, check out the video. Are there any, I imagine there are, I don't know if you are familiar with them. Are there any hacky sack organizations in the state or nationally?
I believe there are, but I have not interacted with them.
Okay, so just look up hacky sack, I guess, and you'll find it if
Right?
you want to find out more. I guess too, from what you're telling me, I guess kind of final question here is that are there actual rules to hacky sack or you develop them as you go along?
There are 3 rules.
Please.
One is you don't use your hands.
Okay.
Two is you don't kick it in. You don't serve it yourself. You don't kick it in. You toss it into somebody else. We call that no self-serving. And the
Okay.
third rule, which is my favorite rule, is there's no sorries. We don't
All
apologize.
right. Very cool.
So when people join the group and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or "Oh, that sucked," or whatever, we say, "No, no, it's all right. That's not the goal here."
Well, then
And
I guess a fourth one, and you alluded to it earlier, is that you want people to have fun.
yeah,
Okay. And yeah, see, it's so contrary to a lot of sports, unfortunately,
right.
is that people actually have fun and dare they laugh at this? Do they laugh when they're playing this game?
Well, yes, we laugh especially when the beanbag going into outer space, as it were, and someone runs after it and kicks it back into the game before it hits the ground.
Oh, very cool. So
Um,
they call that, what is that, like a save or something?
right.
If they have a term for it, but that's pretty impressive when they do it. And you were telling me, I think off the air and earlier too, that sometimes like, so how long you playing? You don't call it a game, or do you call it a game itself, or
Yeah.
each individual time you enter start it? What is it called? Is that a game?
Yeah. Oh, we don't keep track of how many times we get a hack. We just do it.
Yeah. And so before it touches the ground, and I guess each time it touches the ground, you start over again. Is that
I
it?
just pick it up and toss it to somebody.
Okay. And so, how long does that typically, like the longest one? You said sometimes they go for 23. Do you call it a round or what do you call it each time you're
Uh,
kicking it?
Around. Typically, it lasts. Most of the time, it's one or two, and that only takes a minute
Right.
or 2 minutes. Um, when I did 23, I was just with one other person, and the two of us kept it aloft for 23 kicks.
Okay, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
So that's the record. And so, if folks are interested in hacky sack, I guess the first thing they can, well, we're going to talk about at the end of the show, have them look at you guys playing hacky sack, and then if it's up to you, Gary, but if somebody wanted to find out more about hacky sack in general, would it be okay if they contacted you?
Yes.
I mean,
Um,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have a Facebook page or email address you could share with people?
my email address, should I give it
Yeah,
now?
if you don't mind, sure.
GaryAwake5 at gmail.com.
Okay,
That's
Gary Awake.
GaryAwake, the number five at Gmail.
I'm really glad you shared that, Gary, because that differentiates you between Gary Awake 4 and Gary Awake 6. I always wonder that, sometimes I have a number. Was there significance of Gary Awake 5?
Face Gmail wouldn't accept just the Gary Awake. I had to add a number to get registered.
And what was the 5 significance of that?
No, I just like to seem
Okay.
like it.
But no, so if anybody's out there listening, don't try to be Gary. You can be Gary Wake 6 or 4, but you can't be 5. So reserved it.
Right.
And again, I
That
have Gary once again mentioned the uh the YouTube. I'll put it in the notes. But if you want to find the YouTube, if they can't wait to the end of the show, the YouTube it's listed under what?
Hacky Sack 101.
Okay, how can Zach?
College course 101.
Okay, and it's a fun. I don't know if I've seen all three, but I saw the one a couple times. It's just a real fun video. And if you want to have a greater understanding of this, I guess the final question, Gary, I'll ask you is who should be playing a hacky sack? Who do you recommend it to?
Anyone who has the capability of good, decent balance, um, someone who is either not competitive or willing to learn how to play non-competitively. Um, if, I'm glad to have people call me, but I can't guarantee a spot in the circle because once we reach 10 people, we're full.
And even that when you have 10 people, do most of them tend to show uh, each week?
Uh, we get 9 or 10 probably every fourth or fifth time.
Okay,
Mostly
pretty.
it's 5 or 6 or 7 of us.
Okay, but it's a nice group. So you don't want, ideally, even if you want to do this on yourself, I'm hearing you say you don't want necessarily 1 or 2 people, but you don't want 10 all the time. Some place between, I guess, 2 and 10 would be a good
Right,
number to shoot for.
right. It's more fun when we have four or more.
Okay.
That's-
Well, Gary Schwartz, I'd like thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaines World webcast. I'd also like to invite folks to look for where you can see the game in action because you really get a much better feel for it when you see it. And I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. Hopefully we'll bump into each other, which we do every so often, Gary. That'd be great.
All right, I like that.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Be well.
Thank you.